What's up, Flannelverse? We're back for Sunday morning football, another London game this week. We've got the Broncos technically at the Jets, but again, it is in London. As usual, going to be going position by position, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, defenses, and kickers. In the end, I'll take any questions really as we go, and then I will be building lineups at the end using Run the Sims. While you're coming in, please do like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the NFL season, and could use your support. I will note, usually if I do a Thursday night football stream, a Monday night football stream, I will have spent several hours writing an article, looking things over. That is not the case when I do these Sunday games. I don't have the time to spend. I didn't write an article for this game, so I have not spent hours on this game already heading in. I've spent about half an hour looking stuff over, reading through the Coach Speak Index, kind of getting a feel for the slate ahead of time. But I'm going to be learning things here on this show with you. If you guys have any valuable information to share, of course, feel free to share it. Always appreciate that. Blue and orange flannel sounds like a nice one. I don't have any orange and blue flannels, sadly. Indeed, Carlos, let's win some money. What's up, Kieran? Good to see you. All right, we're going to get into it. Starting with the quarterbacks, we have Bo Nix is 10,800, projected for 48% flex ownership, 22% captain ownership, 70% total ownership to Bo Nix. Seems fine to me at a glance. We don't have a ton of like awesome pay up options on this slate. Certainly not overpriced a rushing quarterback. RotoGrinders has him at 11% captain ownership. That's obviously really nice. And then 69% flex ownership. That is very, very nice. So 80% total. They actually have him at more ownership overall, and more of it in the flex versus the captain spot. Kind of interesting there. Bo next is pulling up his. I want to look at his rushing stats so we can think about how we want to stack him. So far this year, just 20 rushing yards per game. A little bit, honestly, lesser of a runner than he is in my mind. Last year, just 4 rushing touchdowns on 25 yards per game. So we think of him, or I should say, I shouldn't, lump everybody in with me, but I think of him as being a pretty good runner, somewhat elite rusher. And so far, that has not really been the case. Just 5 rushing touchdowns in 22 career games, 24 rushing yards per game. So you probably do want to be stacking up Bo Nix, regardless of where he is in your lineup. I think you could get away with Bo Nix in the flex unstacked, but if you have Bo Nix at captain, particularly at his price tag of 10,800, if he's not rushing for multiple touchdowns, he's probably getting there by throwing the ball quite a bit, which means for him to throw the ball quite a bit and for one of his pass catchers to not outscore him or be the better captain play, he probably needs to be spreading the ball around. So I would require, if I were using an optimizer, would require 2 pass catchers or more in the flex when I have Bo Nix at captain. In the flex, though, I think you could play him stacked potentially in the flex. Just hope that he spreads the ball around a bit, scores one of those rushing touchdowns. I think it is viable. Okay. Anything else? No, I think the ownership looks fine here. Like he's one of the best captains. I'll probably be under 22%, but over 10%, 70 to 80% in total seems about right. Bo Nix, one of the better plays on the slate. Oh, and we should look at the schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed so far on the season. Actually, not a bad matchup with the Jets so far. It looks like it's the 10th best matchup so far in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. So yeah, it looks okay for Bo Nix. Solid matchup. Should run a little bit. Everything looks pretty good there. In terms of pass rate over expectation, I mean, they're actually fourth in terms of PROE on the season. The last game was their lowest PROE of the season, but still 4th overall PROE for the Broncos. They are throwing it a bit. So yeah, everything looks pretty good for Bo Nix. Seems like a priority here. Justin Fields on the other side, 49% flex ownership, 21% captain ownership. So looks like the exact same as Bo Nix, except for 1% more of it being in the flex instead of at captain. He's 10,600. Again, looks really good. You look at Justin Fields' rushing numbers, averaging 51 rush yards per game, already has 3 rushing touchdowns in 4 games. Looks really good. You can certainly play Justin Fields unstacked. You can play him unstacked anywhere in your lineup, including at captain. Usually at captain, I probably want to have him stacked up with a pass catcher. But the moral here is he is enough of a rushing quarterback that you don't need to be stacking up Justin Fields. And I think he looks like a strong option. Again, I probably want to have somewhere between 10 and 20%. Yeah, Rotogrinders has him lower at captain as well. Interesting. Yeah, and they have him at 63% in the flex. Yeah, none of these look too far off from where I want to be. I think I'd like to be somewhere in the 10 to 20% captain exposure range for Justin Fields. 70% overall looks good to me. I don't have any great takes here. I think it looks like they both look like strong options. We don't have a ton of pay up options that are just like, you can count on at least 10 fantasy points and you have the upside of 30. I think both quarterbacks fit as far as that goes. So it's really just how are you playing them when you play them? And I think you can play Justin Fields unstacked if you want to. You should probably be stacking up Bo Nix though. And you can also stack up Justin Fields because he might have a game where he just throws more than usual. All right. Denver left for Europe much earlier than the Jets. Okay. So you think that's a benefit for Denver? Probably. I would think that's a benefit for Denver. What's up, Corville? I forget where your Daddy Corville we're going by now. I forget what your actual first name is. What's up, Who Hames? Chris says Dobbins, Nix, Harvey, Mims. That's a good place to start. You think this is going to be a fun showdown? So I think it's sort of fun. It could be a fun showdown. So it could just be the worst possible game where it's just field goals and defense. But I think this could end up surprising and being sort of fun. A lot of ways this one can go. Let's move on to running backs. I think we're going to get more interesting as we move on to other positions. Now I'm going to start talking about Broncos running backs by reading some of the Coach Speak Index because I thought it was really interesting. I read the Coach Speak Index. I thought, wow, this is really wheels up for RJ Harvey. His time has come. We're about to have some great weeks for RJ Harvey. And then I looked at the game log, and to me, it doesn't totally line up. So I want to hear if any of you have thoughts that differ from what I'm seeing here. But on the 29th, so after that game in which RJ Harvey did kind of have a little bit of a breakout, I think that was the game, right, against the Bengals. He had a little bit of a breakout, scored a touchdown late, was pretty involved. And after that game, the post-game presser, Sean Payton said, something we did differently tonight was to give series to J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey. Both of them got in good rhythms. They both ran hard. On the 2nd of October, so just over a week ago, Sean Payton said, we're super excited about J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey. I think you can feed two backs. Both were exceptional the other night. On whether Payton would like to continue giving full series to Dobbins and Harvey like he did in week 4. He said, yeah, I would like to do more of that. And then on the 3rd, offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi said, on switching over to giving full series to J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey last week, he said, I think it was always our vision that we would get to that with these two guys. They both have similar skill sets. They're really good runners. They're both effective as pass catchers and blockers. It was just about making sure that we're confident in RJ having the protections down, and he came along quickly with that. So I think it's something we feel good about going forward. So they keep on talking about alternating series with RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. And then I look at the actual stats from last week for RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. Wait, do I have it pulled up for just last week? Yeah, this is so in week 5, RJ Harvey ends up with 21.4% of the snaps, 4 carries, 3 targets on 18.6% route participation, to J.K. Dobbins getting 20 carries in that game, just 1 target on 11.6% route participation, played 54.3% of the snaps. So I don't know what they're talking about alternating series here. I guess they didn't technically say alternating series. They said give them full series. But then I looked at the actual game log to look at, did something happen here that I'm missing? They weren't even giving RJ Harvey full series. It was they would give RJ Harvey a run and then they'd pass it a couple times and then they'd run it with J.K. Dobbins. So maybe it happens this week that they actually alternate series, or at least give a few. Maybe it's one for RJ Harvey to every 2 for J.K. Dobbins, something like that. But I have not seen what they're talking about here with these running backs alternate getting their own full series. Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is getting his. RJ Harvey has not been getting full series. So I guess we can wish cast it a little bit if you want to with RJ Harvey and assume that he's going to start getting more. But so far, I am not seeing it in the actual the game log or in the final stats there. J.K. Dobbins 9,400 projected for 27% flex ownership, 7% captain ownership. The matchup with the Jets. Oh, and I didn't look up. Let's see. So it was a strong matchup for Bo Nix. And then for Justin Fields, bottom tier matchup for Justin Fields, and in particular, tough against rushing quarterbacks so far on the season. So not an ideal matchup for Justin Fields. I don't know. It doesn't worry me that much. He's a unique enough quarterback that the matchups don't matter as much to me, but I would prefer a good matchup. Obviously, everybody wanted to play him against Dallas, which was theoretically a strong matchup, and he got there ultimately. I don't know. With only two teams to choose from, I still think he is a relatively strong option. But maybe that breaks the tie in favor of Bo Nix generally. As far as running backs for the Broncos, this is looks like it's a slightly below average matchup for running backs, maybe a little bit better than average for running backs on the ground and worse through the air, I think is what we're seeing here. Yep. So it's plus 2.9 fantasy points per game, schedule adjusted on the ground, minus 4.9 through the air for Denver in this matchup. Ultimately a below average, -2 schedule adjusted fantasy points per game in this matchup for the Broncos. So not a great matchup, but ultimately, who cares? It's not that far off of neutral. J.K. Dobbins, 27% flex, 7% captain. I mean, again, if they are actually alternating series, like he doesn't project that well. 13.6 is a projection here. Roto-Grinders has it at 12.7. So the projections are just pretty low on J.K. Dobbins for his price tag. But he got 20 carries last week. So ultimately, if he's capable of getting 20 carries at 9,400, that's a fair price tag for that kind of workload. Was not involved in the passing game. So that would be the downside to J.K. Dobbins is he only saw one target, but he also only ran 12% of the routes. They had Tyler Badie out there for 30% of the routes, RJ Harvey for 19% last week. So ultimately, it's a little bit tough to get excited about J.K. Dobbins at 9,400 in a below average matchup, not involved in the passing game. I don't think these numbers are far off from fair, though. 27%, 7% at captain for a guy who just got 20 carries last week. All of that seems good enough to me. I don't have any super strong take on J.K. Dobbins here. I think those numbers are about right. RJ Harvey, 4,400, 45% flex ownership, 1% captain ownership. Again, if you wish cast to RJ Harvey's going to be alternating series with J.K. Dobbins and maybe more involved in the passing game, that would look okay. But 46% ownership for 4,400 so far, basically just a backup running back, doesn't excite me. Those are not numbers that I can get behind. Roto-Grinders says RJ Harvey at 17% ownership. That would be a fully different story. 17% ownership at 4,400. I would want to be with maybe even a little bit of the over the field at 17% flex ownership for RJ Harvey. So this really comes down to, I mean, these are just so far off that it's hard to even have a conversation without knowing how the ownership is actually going to shake out. So let me actually look at some tertiary sources here to see what other places have the ownership numbers at, because I'm thinking that one of these is going to be pretty far off. And I would guess that it's the 45% is pretty far off, but I want to see if that is the case. So give me a second here. And then if that is the case, then we have to adjust that in the Sims. Yeah, it looks like elsewhere it's literally just smack dab in the middle, around 30% projected ownership for RJ Harvey. I'm not going to form an opinion on this yet because I want to look at the receivers and their price tags. Again, I haven't spent as much time on this slate going in as I normally would, but it's all going to be relative. So, and yeah, I see Troy Franklin's at 7,000, Cortland Sutton 10,000. It might be that he actually is a great value at 4,400, and 30% ownership will be fine. At a glance, that seems too high of ownership for a guy who, again, had, I think, did I say four carries last week? Yeah, 4 carries last week. Sorry. But yeah, four carries last week for RJ Harvey. It's a bit rich for somebody who's not actually splitting carries. Tyler Badie, 1,400, 3% projected flex ownership. Roto-Grinders has him at 6%. Actually had not a bad workload last week. 0 carries, but he did run 30% of the routes. Saw a couple targets, so if you convert on a couple targets, score a touchdown at 1,400, you can pay it off pretty easily. I think, having more than 3% certainly makes sense. I don't think I'll have more than, like, 10% Tyler Badie, but somewhere in that kind of 5 to 10% range seems right because he did have a role. He has kinda off and on had a role. I mean, we look back at week 4, it was 16% route participation, 2 targets. So he's had 2 targets in each of the past 2 weeks, 0 targets in week 3. So he could just not be involved at all, but, has the ability to work a little bit. I don't know. It seems okay at 1,400, not a big priority. Maybe 1 out of 20 lineups for Tyler Badie. Adam Prentice, he's min priced, I guess. Projection of 0.4. What does his workload look like? So in week, and I'll just pull up the full season workload. 2 carries on the season in 5 games, 1 target. Yeah, that's a pretty minimal workload. He would pay it off with a touchdown, that $200 price tag. So in a 150 set, fine, not a priority, not somebody I'm playing in 20 lineups. Jaleel McLaughlin, I think similarly, probably not going to get there. Has he even? I don't know if he's played a snap on offense so far this year. So I think we can probably safely ignore Jaleel McLaughlin. Maybe there are scenarios where he gets a touch and scores a touchdown, but not a priority by any means. Hasn't really been playing. He might even be inactive. On the Jet side, so now we have Breece Hall with Isaiah Davis. Braylon Allen is out for maybe not the season, but he's out for an extended period of time now. You do have Khalil Herbert and Kene Nwangwu here, both at 200. We can look at what happened in the most recent game, and I'll just pull that up. The first game without Braylon Allen, 14 carries for Breece Hall, 4 targets on 35% route participation, 1 carry for Isaiah Davis, 4 targets on 43% route participation. Khalil Herbert, 0 snaps in that game. Avery Williams, 0 snaps. So it was really just, and Andrew Beck did see 10 snaps, ran 4 routes, saw a couple targets, but it was basically just the Breece Hall and Isaiah Davis show last week. Let's see. Khalil Herbert. I want to see how long he's been with the Jets now. I think that was his first game with the Jets, or first game at least active. Maybe he had been on the practice squad prior to that. Maybe there are scenarios where Khalil Herbert, earns more of a workload over time. There was some coach speak that I think was sort of promising with Khalil Herbert. Let me read that real quick. Yeah, on October 3rd, head coach Aaron Glenn said, Khalil Herbert still has a lot of meat left on the bone. I look forward to seeing him play. We'll see if he can play this week. He just got here. So he had just arrived to the team last week. Could surprise us and have a little bit of a role. I mean, I look forward to seeing him play. We'll see if he can play this week. Maybe they decided he wasn't ready to play last week. So maybe Khalil Herbert has a role this week. I think this is kind of an unknown. So I think really comes down to ownership. Again, we have so we'll start with Breece Hall. Breece Hall, I think the workload stays the same, maybe increases without Braylon Allen there. 36% projected flex ownership, 23% captain ownership. Is it the same at Roto Grinders? Let's see. Roto Grinders has it at 28% flex, 14.5% captain ownership. Those seem like kind of the numbers I'd like to have. 14.5 seems about right for Breece Hall. Seems to be maybe he's taking on a bigger workload now without Braylon Allen there, but still just 14 carries last week for Breece Hall. They just didn't run it all that much. I think kind of in line with his season numbers. Let's see. Yeah, 14 carries. You did see 4 targets, but just 35% route participation last week. So that was not like some big leap for Breece Hall. And again, in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, where are we? Oh, it's actually I forgot. It is a pretty strong matchup so far against this Denver defense in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, primarily or only really through the air. It's neutral 0.0 on the ground, but then it is a plus 4.6 through the air. So that could benefit Brees Hall. But ultimately, the workload looks about the same as it had been on the season. Like he's, I guess relative to the rest of the team, he's the pretty clear bell cow here now. I'm going to do all weeks again here. Remove these splits. I want to compare last week to the full season for Brees Hall. So on the season, 66 carries in 5 games. So yeah, it doesn't look like it's really changed all that much. What is that? Just over 13 carries per game for Brees Hall on the season. 20 targets, so just 4 targets per game on the season. So really his role, didn't change at all. But I do think that was just a game where they ran the ball less last week because Isaiah Davis only had 1 carry. Nobody else had any. So it's hard to tell just based on this 1 game sample. It's possible that he is getting a heavier share of the workload, like in terms of expected fantasy points last week, 15.7 for Brees Hall, 6.5 for Isaiah Davis, 5.9 for Andrew Beck. On the season, expected fantasy points per game, 13.3. I guess 20.2% of the expected fantasy points for the team on the season. And in that 1 game, I guess 16.8. So lower actual share of the expected fantasy points, but I think that's just because they were throwing the ball more. I don't know. It's tough to read based on this 1 game if Brees Hall is going to have a bigger role without Braylon Allen there. I think it's pretty reasonable to assume he will, that they don't just think they can, straight up replace Isaiah Davis or Braylon Allen with Isaiah Davis and Khalil Herbert. So the role could grow here, but so far it's been about 14 carries per game, 4 targets per game. This is a high price tag, high ownership for that role for Brees Hall in a, good matchup, I guess, for a receiving running back, but not like an exceptional one. Seems okay. Not a huge priority, but these numbers seem maybe a little bit inflated to me. I think especially at captain, 23% seems too high for Brees Hall. Maybe 36% at flex is fine. And then Isaiah Davis, I mean, he's 4,000. Theoretically could take on a bigger workload now without Braylon Allen there if they start running the ball a bit more. 8% flex ownership seems okay. I mean, relative to RJ Harvey, who doesn't, so far hasn't really shown that he has that much of a better role. 8% ownership seems more fair. I think it's fine though. I don't think I'm going to be well over the field on 8%. I think that's a reasonable number. I don't think I'm expecting him to take on like a better workload than Braylon Allen had while he was there. I do think Khalil Herbert at 200 is playable in a 150 set just based on he got there last week. We didn't see him play, but the coaches were also saying, I'm not sure if he's going to be ready to play this week. They say he has meat left on the bone. Maybe he starts working in here and there. And at 200, doesn't need all that much to pay it off. So I think Khalil Herbert is a pretty strong, like he probably would make it 1 out of my first 20 lineups and kind of get there about 5% exposure to Khalil Herbert. I think he's strong enough for that. All right, let's move on to wide receivers. I'm going to check in on chat also. All right. For 20 entry max for Sunday slate, 1 p.m. games, how do you approach percentage for how many quarterbacks you get to and so on with running back and wide receiver also? I mean, that's extremely slate dependent and kind of a personal decision. For me, if I'm playing 20 entry max, usually there's just going to be like 3 quarterbacks or 4 quarterbacks that I really like, and I'll have 5 of each of those, and then whatever's left over, I'll mix in some other players. But there's not like a correct approach overall. It really comes down to slate to slate. There might be some slates where I just play 1 quarterback in all 20 lineups if I like that quarterback enough, or like 2 quarterbacks, split it up that way. And then there's going to be other slates where I play no more than like 3 stacks of any 1 quarterback and really spread it out. So I don't think that there is a correct answer to this question. It really comes down to who do you like on the slate. Just make sure you get to, a lineup of each of the quarterbacks that you are going to like. If it goes off and you don't have it? Are you going to be kicking yourself and saying, I knew this was going to happen? Then if you knew it was going to happen, make sure you play at least one of that quarterback stack, I guess would be my recommendation. I do that trip a lot, and it's an absolute shit show with jet lag. I don't even need to do. Yeah, I mean, it would be. It's a tough trip. It's I do not envy these guys playing in Europe. Like that's a tough thing to do as a football player for sure. Talking about Florida, I don't really watch college football. Got to be honest with you. All right. Thinking about running with Harvey, then Hall for leverage in showdown. Doesn't look like it's going to be leverage. Looks like Harvey pretty chalky and Hall pretty chalky. But I mean, who knows? Maybe they come in lower than they're being projected. You need to remember that a lot of these players have never left the country before. It's a really big deal for some of them. That's true. And then they go out partying. I mean, Jordan Addison got held out of the first quarter because he was out partying in London. So, yeah, I think they're going out there having fun. Hunter Henry or Waller this week? Ugh, probably Henry. Just go with the guy who's got a larger sample of being good. Check the box score for the last time the Jets played in Europe. I don't remember when that was. One of you who's not on a stream maybe can look that up for me. Is this Denver's first international game? All right. That might be true. All right. No, Cubs going to lose. I just invited Justin and Drew and Derek. See if any of them want to jump on this show with me. And Justin responded, said Neil. That was his only response, Neil. And I looked up and saw the Cubs are playing. So yeah, cheering for the Cubs, but had to do the show. All right, I'll move it on. Talk about some wide receivers. Let me take a sip of my water and a sip of my bourbon. Got some Maker's Mark here. That was the water. So Cortland Sutton, 10,000. Troy Franklin, 7,000. Marvin Mims, 3,200. Pat Bryant, 600. Let's pull up receiving stats. And I guess let's first look at, we looked at schedule adjusted for all the running backs. Let's look at wide receivers. Start there. So for Denver receivers, it is a bottom 8 matchup, 8th worst matchup for receivers against the Jets. Doesn't look like there's anywhere that is particularly good. I see it's a slightly good matchup for slot receivers, but like only slightly above average there. Generally, though, tough matchup for Denver receivers. We'll see if we have, are we getting any kind of shadow coverage by Sauce Gardner? I know people have mixed opinions about whether that matters. But yeah, we do have Cortland Sutton is being shadowed by Sauce Gardner. You can factor that in to whatever extent you want. Maybe you think so far in the season, this actually shows that it's been a positive matchup for receivers shadow covered by Sauce Gardner. So if you think it's a positive matchup, you can play it that way. But that is what is being projected, is that Cortland Sutton is going to be shadowed by Sauce Gardner. I would assume Garrett Wilson also going to be shadowed. Yep, Garrett Wilson by Patrick Surtain. That one still a negative matchup so far this year. We'll start there with the Denver side. So we're seeing a projected cover situation for Cortland Sutton being covered by Sauce Gardner. He's 10,000. Looks like he's getting, kind of an ownership reduction here. 27% flex ownership, 11% captain ownership. If we look at the weekly route share report, and then we'll also look at the weekly target share report. Routes have been great for Cortland Sutton. 86% in week 1, down to 59% in week 2. I don't remember why that is, but up to 87.5, 75, and then 95.3% route participation last week for Cortland Sutton. In terms of target share, (22.5, 13.3, 32, 14, 25.6. So it's been kind of all over the place for Cortland Sutton. Looks like he's kind of ping-ponging games here with Troy Franklin in terms of who gets the higher target share so far on the season, but it's been those two leading, I think, every game so far. He is the more expensive, has the worst matchup. I don't know. I have no real issue with 38% Cortland Sutton. It seems a bit rich maybe in the flex. I think 11% captain is fine. I honestly, I think I probably come in close to where the field is at there, 38%. Roto Grinders has it at, where is he? 7% captain. So I think I like being over that 7% number. He does have up still 28% flex. Yeah. So I think these numbers are about where they should be. Honestly, I don't have any major stands on Cortland Sutton here. Troy Franklin, 7,000. You kind of hope that you're going to get a little bit of a discount there. I guess you have a little bit of a discount on Cortland Sutton, but still on the season. I mean, it's still that's a high price tag for Troy Franklin on the season. Troy Franklin, 31 targets, 37 for Cortland Sutton. 74% route participation for Franklin, 81% for Cortland Sutton. See, does either of them? I guess Troy Franklin, that's a lot more slot route participation than I realized for Franklin, 57%. So I guess he actually benefits from the matchup here a little bit. Ooh, Quentin Johnston trending toward missing week 6. So hopefully you guys are not relying on Quentin Johnston this week. Troy Franklin, 57% slot participation. So I guess he actually looks pretty good. I look at these price tags and I'm like, I just want to play the Cortland Sutton at 10,000 instead of Troy Franklin. But honestly, their roles have been pretty similar this year. I think Troy Franklin may be ascending. Maybe at this point is the better play than Cortland Sutton because you get the $3,000 price tag, you get the slot route participation, which has been slightly better so far this year, and you get a reduced ownership here, 1% captain ownership for Troy Franklin. So I wasn't expecting to say this, but looking at the data that we have here, I think it looks pretty good for Troy Franklin. I think he's a really strong play here and probably the priority over Cortland Sutton. All right. Excuse me. Marvin Mims, 3,200. Man, down to 13. Oh, sorry, that's target share. Okay. Route participation for Marvin Mims, 51%, 31%, 53%, 48%, 42%. I think we just had a showdown slate with the Broncos on it, in which I noted like he's lost his running work. And then in that game, he scored a rushing touchdown. So I was like, I was kind of like, it's sort of tough to get there. In some ways, I think he was fine, but tougher to get excited about him when he doesn't have the rushing work. I'm looking him up right now. Yeah, it was one of those games. So he didn't have a rushing attempt prior to is week 4 game against Cincinnati. That 2 games there was like didn't have a single rushing attempt for the first 3 weeks of the season. He's had one in each of the past 2 games. So he's been, rushing here and there. He did score a touchdown. Luckily, like when they use him, it's often I think he's more likely than like a running back to score a touchdown with his running work. Again, the route participation is fine so far. The target share, like not terrible. Here it is. Target share 13%, 14%, 16%. So it's increased over the past 3 weeks relative to weeks 1 and 2. So I think Marvin Mims actually looks like a really strong play at 3,200, just given all the different ways they use him, even without like elite route participation. I think the price tag 3,200 just a bit too low on Marvin Mims, 41% and 3%. Those seem fair. Like honestly, I was hoping for lower ownership here. The ownership is, RG has him at 25% flex ownership. I would really like him at 25% flex ownership. That's a number I would want to get above. 6% cap ownership. Honestly, no real issue with that either. Yeah, I think I want to have him in 30 to 40% of my lineups overall. Maybe 3 to 5% at captain seems okay for Marvin Mims. I don't know. He's a tough one to break down because they use him in a lot of different weird ways. So it usually comes down to ownership with Marvin Mims and ownership is pretty high here, so like less of a priority than he would be if we were getting kind of an unknown Marvin Mims. But I think that that's kind of where I come down is I'll be probably a little bit later than if the field's at 44%, I'll probably be later than 44%. If the field ends up at 20%, I'll be higher than that number. Somewhere in that range is where I'd like to be. Maybe 30% overall. Marvin Mims seems okay. Pat Bryant, 600. Where is he? Man, he has not been targeted at all. 0 targets, looks like, in the last game. 2.4%. It must have been targeted once in week 4. Not a great workload for Pat Bryant. He was up to 53.5% route participation in week 5. So he continued kind of trending upward at least. Now, what happened in that game? Who was somebody out for this game? Let me look. No, looks like everybody was playing. Trent Sherfield kind of took a back seat. Am I forgetting somebody who was out here? I don't think so. Looks like everybody was in. And we've just seen Pat Bryant ascend a little bit. So I guess that's promising. 53.5% route participation, even without a target. Like that's promising for Pat Bryant. Let me look at where is he running his routes? Primarily out of the slot also benefits Pat Bryant a little bit. I think the price is low enough at 600 and the ownership is low enough that he's actually a really, really fun dart, in my opinion. Like somebody that I want to be, 5x the field if he 10x the field if he comes in at 3%. Like I think that would be a really strong play if he comes in at 10%. Here, this is that's captain ownership. They have him at 1%, and then in the flex, 7.6%. So less fun there. Maybe if he comes in at 7.6%, maybe I'd want to be at 15% or something. But I do think 15 to 20. I do think that he's a relatively strong bet, all things considered. We do have Andrew Beck there as 400. Targeted occasionally seems fine. But no, I think Pat Bryant looks like a pretty strong play here. Trent Sherfield, 1,000. Let's take a look at the target share for Sherfield. 5% in the last game. Route participation been shrinking for Sherfield. You mix him in like a backup tight end, where it's maybe you'll score a touchdown, you hope for the touchdown. Otherwise, no great reason to play Trent Sherfield with the shrinking route participation down to 7% in the last game. Hard to make a strong case there, other than anything can happen in a football game. Maybe he scores a touchdown. You can make that bet in a 150 set. I'm probably not getting there in 20 lineups. Let me check in on chat. Let's see. Mims is sort of touchdown dependent. I do not disagree with that. Being a sauce hater is chalk. I was trying to figure out what you're saying here, Justin Swartz. Yes, being a sauce hater is pretty chalky. People don't love their Sauce Gardner. I would prefer not to have the sauce coverage personally. That would be my preference. If I want to play a receiver, I want them to not be shadowed by Sauce Gardner personally. Yeah, I also wish Mims either cost more or was unowned, so that will kind of dictate. It's sort of like his ownership is all over the place, his role is all over the place. I probably just want to middle it, play it. Like I think efficient ownership is like 25%, 30%. That's probably just where I want to be, and then see what the field does. Hope they're way off in one way or the other, and then hope things fall my way. People loving some Engram. We'll get there. Yeah, 600 does seem crazy for over 50% route participation. Fun rookie, maybe ascending over time. All right, Jet side, we have so Alden Lazard is out. Theoretically helpful. We've got Garrett Wilson, 10,200, 32% flex ownership, 8% captain ownership. Again, we'll be getting the Patrick Surtain shadow coverage that is being projected. I think everybody mostly agrees that that's a pretty negative thing. I think that's hating Surtain less chalky than hating Sauce Gardner. I think most people agree not a great matchup when you are shadowed by Patrick Surtain. So it's a tough matchup, but ultimately we get a discount in terms of ownership on Garrett Wilson. Again, 32% flex, 8% captain for Garrett Wilson. I think I particularly like him at 8% captain. The flex ownership seems maybe fine, maybe even high. Actually, here we have consensus right around 40% total ownership on Garrett Wilson, with 8 of it being at captain. I think I'll probably be with or over the field on Garrett Wilson at captain, and a little bit under the field in the flex is likely where I end up. He should still see a lot of targets here, would be my expectation. If we look at the target share week by week, Garrett Wilson didn't actually lead last week, but I think he's led every other week of the season. 36%, 32%, 33%, 30%, down to 22% in that last game, as they targeted Mason Taylor more, finally, as they had been promising. I don't know. I don't know if it moves back up, or because of the Sauce Gardner coverage, he remains with a low target short share here. I would expect the efficiency to go down a bit with Sauce Gardner shadowing him. Ultimately, I think I want to be under 40% on Garrett Wilson, but at or over the field on 8% at captain. Josh Reynolds, 3,600 projected for. Actually, let's take a look at the schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed for receivers here against Denver. Yeah, both here bottom 10. Let's see. 8th worst matchup for, ninth worst matchup for receivers against Denver. And no real great spots here. Again, slightly better for slot, but generally just a bad spot for receivers in this matchup. Josh Reynolds missed some time already this year. He's 3,600, 10% projected ownership. The target share has not been great at all, 13.6% in week 1. He did come into the year as the nominal wide receiver 2 for the Jets, but it hasn't meant that much. 13.6%, 7.4% in week 4, 8.7% target share in week 5. Could benefit, I guess, theoretically, from Garrett Wilson getting the shadow coverage. Maybe we see a little bit more Josh Reynolds. He is running a fair number of routes here. 3,600. I think I want to be over 10%. Like, I think he's probably the next most likely, the 4th most likely of the flex available options here to score a touchdown after Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and Mason Taylor. I think next up would be Josh Reynolds in terms of likely to score a touchdown, or like have 4 receptions. So I think he's a pretty good bet. 3,600, 10% ownership. I would like to be over 10% on Josh Reynolds. He's just too cheap for a wide receiver 2, who again could just benefit from, hey, the starter is being the number 1 is being shadowed by Patrick Surtain. Let's get the ball to somebody else. I don't think he's next in line. I think it would be Mason Taylor or Breece Hall, but I do think he's a little bit more likely to see an uptick in opportunities here. So at 3,600, I think Josh Reynolds actually looks like a pretty strong play. Then you've got Arian Smith and Tyler Johnson. As I recall, Tyler Johnson was inactive last week. Arian Smith ran 61% of the routes. No, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Tyler Johnson was inactive, ran 3.7% of the routes last week. So we can mostly disregard Tyler Johnson, although now Allen Lazard is out. So that could benefit Tyler Johnson, I guess. Maybe we see an uptick there. Maybe we just see Arian Smith continue to see a bit more work here. Still just 2.2% target share last week for Arian Smith. I guess I'd take Arian Smith over Tyler Johnson, even with the $400 more price tag, but I guess so would the field, 9% to 2%. Both are kind of just, I guess Arian Smith maybe a little bit better than a dart throw. Actually, I mean, 1,200 for a guy who's running 60% of the routes, 61% of the routes, and now maybe benefits from Allen Lazard being out. So maybe that moves up to 70, 75% at 1,200. Like that's a pretty strong bet. So I actually think I prefer Josh Reynolds in a vacuum, but at 1,200, I think Arian Smith is actually not that far behind, because if he scored the touchdown, probably pays off this price tag. And who knows, maybe next up, the next most likely to see like 3, 4, 5 targets in a game after Josh Reynolds and the other handful of guys. Brandon Smith has a projection, has not been targeted. Maybe in a 150 set. I don't think we need to think too hard about Brandon Smith. All All right. I think that's enough there. But in conclusion, I think Garrett Wilson again. I like him better than 8% at captain, but probably lower than 40% overall. Josh Reynolds, I want to have more than 10%. By that I mean like I'll have maybe 20%. Actually, might be like double the field there. Aaron Smith, maybe I have 15% because he is 1200. 15 to 20% looks okay. Tyler Johnson, who knows? Maybe benefits from Alan Lazar being out. He's 800. I wouldn't mind having 8 to 10% there. Don't think I get to Brandon Smith, but I'm not like if I get to some in the Sims, I'm not gonna kick him out. All right, Debro might be correct. All roads lead back to Mason Taylor. All right, Debro, I invited you on. Where are you? You sure you don't want to join me, Debro, to talk about as we're getting to tight ends now? All right, let's move on to tight ends. Starting with the Broncos side, Evan Ingram, Adam Troutman, Nate Adkins here. Ingram, 6,200 projected for 12% ownership. Last week, 13%. So the target share actually moving up for Evan Ingram, just 10 and 7% the first two games, but then his last two games, 17% and 13% target share. Route participation for Ingram, 28%, 44%, and then up to 59% and 54% the last two games. So we're seeing a little bit of an increase in workload for Evan Ingram here. He did come in as the, like everybody talked about him all summer. He's going to be the Joker role where we're going to get Evan Ingram playing the Joker role. Everybody was so excited about it. And then he's done like nothing with it. But the role is growing a little bit here in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. Where is it? Where's Denver here? Not a bad matchup. Actually, top six matchup so far in the season in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to tight ends against the Jets. So I guess from that standpoint, we've got a positive matchup here, but 6,200 for the role that Evan Ingram has, clearly too expensive. On the other hand, 12% ownership. That seems okay. I mean, he could have a little bit more of a role here. Maybe they do start to do Joker things with Evan Ingram. So I think 12% is about right. I don't, you get other players with similar roles who are a lot cheaper. So the price tag is a bit much here, but ultimately with the 12% ownership, I think that's probably fair on Evan Ingram. Maybe get to a percent or two at captain just in case they do give him like a weird role here. You never really know with Sean Payton when he's going to start using players in weird ways. So I think Evan Ingram is a fine bet here, and I would play one Evan Ingram captain maybe in a 20 lineup set just in case. I think he's a good enough bet there, but ultimately 12% total ownership seems fine. Not something that I'm overly excited about. Adam Troutman hovering right around 20% route participation so far on the season. Not a huge target share, kind of the classic backup tight end, hope for a touchdown. But mixing in a 150 set, not in my first 20 lineups, not really a priority. Nate Adkins is 200, 1.8 projection at 200 actually looks pretty strong, but looks like 2.6% target share last game, 4.8 the game before that. You're really hoping for a touchdown with a guy like Nate Adkins. Is where 15.6, 22.7, 16.3 route participation is not nothing for a backup for a third string tight end, but yeah, you're not expecting much from a Nate Adkins. On the Jet side, as Debro said, all roads lead back to Mason Taylor. The coach speak has been awesome. The role has been growing. This is kind of the reason that Debro gave for drafting Mason Taylor this offseason was who else are they going to be targeting? It was kind of like, hey, they're going to target Garrett Wilson, and then who else is it? Like there's a wide open gap there for Mason Taylor to step into. We had several weeks of the coaches saying, you know what, we need to get the ball to Mason Taylor more. The two playmakers who are not getting the ball enough are Mason Taylor and Breece Hall. They kept on saying it. We need to get the ball to these two guys. Finally, they are getting the ball to Mason Taylor. Actually, On the 8th, so just a few days ago, head coach Aaron Glenn said, "We've made sure to get Mason Taylor involved the last 2 weeks. Obviously, he's a damn good receiver. He's improved as a blocker. He allows us to have another dynamic player in there to open space up for everybody else. That allows other guys to get one-on-ones. We're going to continue to utilize him. He's doing a good job. There's a lot of things he can do better with. Our quarterbacks are doing a good job of getting him the ball and getting him the ball early." Pretty positive stuff. They've and it's not wrong. They've been utilizing him quite a bit. Look at the route participation recently for Mason Taylor, up from 4.5% to 9.1%. Sorry, this is target share for Mason Taylor. 4.5% to 9.1% to 13.9% to 25.9% to 26.1%. I mean, if we can stall out here at 26% target share, I'll take that all day. Those are strong numbers for Mason Taylor, number 2 target on the team recently. He's 5,200. The matchup here, not amazing, but it's not far off of neutral. I think like the price is right. He's getting a fair amount of ownership. Because of the ownership, I don't really think I'm going to be getting much more. 31% projected total ownership here seems fair for his price tag, right in the same kind of price range as he's more than defenses and kickers, looks like. But I have no issue with it. I think 31% ownership seems about right for Mason Taylor as the number 2 pass catcher here. Not going to be shadowed. Yeah, and RG has it at 18%. I would really like him at 18% ownership. So if you want to, make the bet that he does come in at 18%, play 30 to 35% Mason Taylor. I think that makes a lot of sense. Jeremy Reckert not getting any ownership. He's 2,400. Not much in terms of target share, 3.7%, 8.7% the past 2 weeks. So 9% is not nothing in the most recent game. Not running a ton of routes, but up to 28.6 and then 24% the past 2 games seems fine. Not a huge priority, kind of the backup tight end. He's playable at 2,400, but yeah, not a priority by any means. Andrew Beck, I don't know, kind of dart throw. You can play him here and there, but you're really hoping for a touchdown. Doesn't even look like he has not been targeted. So I take it back. Maybe, yeah, just a 150 set dark throw. All right, I'm going to check in on chat, then we'll look at kickers and defenses. Who says, I usually do 1 or 2 lineups, and Mason Taylor is my only option at captain. Okay, so we're just going with Mason Taylor. That's funny. Daniel says, "Nah, it was a typo. It's the joke roll." Yeah, does kind of feel that way. Defenses and kickers. I guess I've got the quarterbacks pulled up, so let's just take a look at the turnovers, because we know Justin Fields always he holds on to the ball too much, gives up in sacks. In terms of interceptions, what do the numbers look like? None so far this year in 4 games. Only 1 last year in 6 games. Did have 9 and 13 games in 2023, 11 in 15 games in 2022, and then 10 in 12 games in 2021. So did early on have some interception issues. Looks like they have not been really an issue recently. In terms of sacks, he was sacked 55 times in 2022, 44 in 13 games in 2023. So he's getting sacked quite a bit. Only sacked 16 times last year in, I guess, only 6 starts, but still that's a lower number than historically. 10 sacks in 4 games so far this year, so 2.5 sacks per game. All right, and then Bo Nix. 12 interceptions in 17 games last year, 4 interceptions in 5 games already this year. So he's really struggled with interceptions this year. Only sacked 5 times in 5 starts this year. Only sacked 24 times in 17 games last year. So doesn't get sacked a ton. The interceptions are up so far this year for Bo Nix. I don't know if that's a small sample size thing or but it's, an issue. Four interceptions in 5 games, does look pretty good for the Jets defense. Ultimately, we've got Will Lutz's 5,000 projected for 25 and 1% ownership at captain. Denver Broncos 22 and 0% at captain. They're 5,400, so they're fairly expensive. The Jets have Nick Folk projected for 23 and 1% at captain. 4,800. Jets are 3,000, 21 and 0% at captain. I mean, the price tag on the Jets is really appealing. 4 interceptions in 5 games for Bo Nix, and the Jets are only 3,000. I like that. I think that's a number that I'll be playing a fair amount. I actually don't know if I'll get to more than 21%. I mean, the field is already getting there at such a high number that I can't really say that I'm prioritizing them more than the field, but I think 20, 21% of the Jets defense, tough to argue with it when they're only 3,000. But I don't have any super strong takes. Otherwise, I think every one of the kickers and defenses getting around 20% to 25% ownership. Can't really say those are numbers I need to be getting overweight on. If I get at least somewhere in the teens on each of them up to like 25, 30%, I would accept that. I don't think I want any more than like 30% or less than 15% probably of any kicker or defense, but no super strong take here on kickers and defenses. All right, and then finally, I will start running some sims. If you have any questions or anything, of course, let me know. Debro thinks they might run some more 12 personnel here. Interesting. So Ruckert, he thinks might be in play. Okay. I mean, what do people think of this trade offer? Heyman, I got offered Achane for Josh Allen. My quarterbacks are Allen and Fields. Running backs are CMC, K9, Henderson, and Carter. Wide receivers are Matthew Golden, Justin Jefferson, Kendrick Bourne, James. I don't know, man. That's a close one because Allen is tough to beat, maybe impossible to beat. All right, we're gonna run some sims. So for the first run, not going to make any changes to the inputs. I want to see what they're going to give me before I do anything. So I'm just going to go to the settings. I'll do 25,000 lineups, size of contest field, 15,000, number of sims, 10,000. We'll do the top heavy payout structure because those are the contests that I play. I'm going to use the Shady Portfolio Diversifier for 191 lineups. Oops, didn't mean to do that. I'm going to download these from DraftKings. All right, so for 191 lineups, we're going to use the Shady Portfolio Diversifier, which is going to give me the top EV portfolio of 191 lineups as opposed to just the 191 top EV lineups individually. And then I'm going to click SimRunner Pro, let that run for a bit. Kieran says, I played 30% of Lil Jordan Humphrey in the last showdown. Who is going to be the Lil Jordan Humphrey for this game? I mean, Lil Jordan Humphrey was phenomenal play in that game. I don't know. Did we come across anybody that I love as much as Lil Jordan Humphrey for this one? Like he was just a very clear, great play in that game. Once we get the Sims run, I'll take another look at it. I'm trying to think of, I mean, it might be Arian Smith is like the closest thing we have at 1,200. Where it's just like the price is so low, he doesn't need to do much. Role should be expanding. I think it's probably Arian Smith. Mims is not a bad answer, but he's more expensive and getting a lot more ownership. So like I would say he qualifies as the Lil Jordan Humphrey just because he's kind of chalky. Like I think he's a strong play, but kind of chalky and more expensive. So yeah, I think it's probably Arian Smith is the closest thing we have to Lil Jordan Humphrey, where it's just like he's super cheap, doesn't need to do that much. What's up, Alan? What's everybody drinking tonight, if anything? Water counts. Should at least be drinking water. Stay hydrated. Dr. Pepper. Is Dr. Pepper caffeinated? A little bit late for caffeine. Electrolytes, I like that answer. You guys are healthy. Coke Zero. Is it not too late for Coke Zero? It would keep me up. Water is the best. I agree. So I always keep that around too. Ginger ale for the win. Okay. I do kind of like ginger. I don't like ginger beer. Ginger beer is like you put it in any kind of drink, like you mix it in. I still don't like it that much unless you like really water it down. I can't handle ginger beer, but I do like ginger ale. Busch Light latte. What's up, Jack? Brandy on the rocks with a root beer chaser. I have not tried that. Brandy on the rocks. Are you from Wisconsin? Because I associate brandy with Wisconsin because the Wisconsin Old Fashioned has brandy in it, which that's what my dad makes. All right, I'm not the only one who thinks ginger beer is weird. Agreed. QJ not officially out, but the latest is he's probably going to miss the game. I don't know scissor and lean. I don't know what that means. Should I drop my bench tight end and pick up upside running back or wide receiver? Almost certainly yes. What's up, Fresh? Go check out the prop shop if you are in a state where you can do prop betting. Herbert sacks with Ladd and Keenan was already my lean. Now it's just going to get chalky. On Aussie DFS, I have Arian Smith, Pat Bryant, and Trent Sherfield all at minimum price. Good point. Pat Bryant also could qualify. I think he qualifies just as much in the low Jordan Humphrey of today. I might actually like him better. He's cheaper than Arian Smith. It's close between those two. I think Sherfield is a distant third in the Arian. Like, he could score a touchdown, obviously, but in terms of like likelihood, I would probably rank it Pat Bryant, then Arian Smith, then Trent Sherfield, but it's close between Smith and Bryant. All right, we have run the Sims. Top lineup here is Bo Nix, captain, with Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Nate Adkins. Bring it back with Justin Fields and Breece Hall. That one uses the full $50,000 salary cap. Interesting to get Nate Adkins into the top lineup here. Now, these are not in order of EV because I have the Shady Portfolio Optimizer on. If I didn't have it on, they would be in the order of EV. But that one actually might be the top EV lineup. Pretty crazy to see Nate Adkins in the top EV lineup because he just allows you to fit in all the other players who look awesome here. Looks like the top 5 lineups are all Bo Nix captain. Second one is Bo Nix with Cortland Sutton, Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, Will Lutz, and Breece Hall. I like that one better, like way better than the top one. Just at a glance, like it makes more sense to me. I guess maybe because I'm biased against Nate Adkins. I'm just like, Will Lutz, yeah, he could score 15. Nobody's surprised at all. Nate Adkins, what is he going to do for me? But it doesn't have Justin Fields in it, so maybe I should not be biased against that top lineup. Third lineup has Bo Nix with Breece Hall, Cortland Sutton. So the first 3 players all the same. Denver Broncos, Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, looks great. Fourth lineup, Bo Nix, Adam Troutman, Breece Hall, Cortland Sutton, Justin Fields, Pat Bryant. A lot like the top lineup there with a couple tweaks. Fifth lineup, Bo Nix, Adam Troutman, Cortland Sutton, Denver Broncos, Troy Franklin, Breece Hall. Finally, the sixth lineup, we get a Breece Hall captain with Justin Fields and Josh Reynolds. Also has Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton, Nate Adkins. Another Nate Adkins, interesting. In terms of my player exposures, so now I'm looking in the shady columns on the far right are going to be my exposures here. I'm going to start at quarterback. Bo Nix, we have 58% in the flex, 22.5% at captain. Justin Fields, 64.7% at captain. So kind of in the range where I'd like to be, 70+% of each. At running back, tons of Breece Hall. I don't think I need this much Breece Hall. 82%, 83% Breece Hall here, more than I thought I was going to get, more than I think I want of Breece Hall. But I mean, the coaches have been making it sound like they want to prioritize him more. Maybe at some point they actually do that and use a bit more Breece Hall. But if there are other players that I'm not getting to enough of, I think Breece Hall is going to be an easy one for me to cut back on. J.K. Dobbins, 36% and 10% looks pretty good. RJ Harvey, 12% and 3%. Now, they do have a much higher ownership projection on RJ Harvey than I've seen elsewhere, which might kind of be the reason that I'm getting to less here. So I might try to get a bit more there. Isaiah Davis at 4,000, getting to 12%, the same exact percent as RJ Harvey. Only 0.5% Tyler Badie, no Adam Prentice in this run. Wide receivers were getting to about 50% of Cortland Sutton overall. Only 17 and 3% of Garrett Wilson. So we really did not get much of Garrett Wilson. 16% and 1% of Marvin Mims, 24% and 3 of Troy Franklin, 14% and 3 of Josh Reynolds, 27 and 0.5 of Pat Bryant. So we did get to a lot of Pat Bryant. Not as much Josh Reynolds as maybe I would have expected. 7% Arian Smith, 19% Tyler Johnson. That's interesting. None of Trent Sherfield or Brandon Smith. Tight end, man, we're not getting to nearly as much of the tight ends as I would have expected. 8 and 6% of Mason Taylor, 4% Evan Ingram, 12% Troutman, 12% Adkins. None of Jeremy Ruckert, none of Andrew Beck. Kickers were at 27% Will Lutz, 0% Nick Folk. That's surprising. 2% Captain Will Lutz. Defense, getting to a lot of the Broncos, 21 and 8%. Not as much of the Jets, 5% and 2% of Captain. So there are some things that I want to adjust here. Now, there have been some improvements at Run the Sims where I don't necessarily need to go back and make changes to like rerun the Sims here. I might do it anyway, just one more time to make sure I'm getting to more of some players, like have them in my pool. But I don't really need to. I could just go in now in the graded lineups, go to advanced filters, and you can say like I want a maximum of 20% of this player at captain. Like you can like go through the list of players and say I don't want more than 20% of these players at captain, and diversify that way, make some more rules, and then rerun the portfolio optimizer. So that's something that I could do here. I think I am going to run the Sims one more time here before I do that, just to get to a little bit closer to the portfolio of lineups that I want, because it's more difficult to get to more of the players you want than it is to get to less of players that you're getting to too much of. It like you kind of do it by getting, cutting down on other players. You get to more of the players that you want, but it takes more time to do it that way. So I actually think I'm going to do one more time running the Sims here. So actually, let me look one more time at my players. Getting to a lot of the quarterbacks. I could cut down on my Breece Hall. Would be happy to do that. I'm also not getting too much of Garrett Wilson, so I think I could either increase Garrett Wilson's target share or maybe decrease Breece Hall's target share a bit, or increase the pass rate of the Jets. Is something I could do there. I think I also need to decrease RJ Harvey's projected ownership because this is just, I think, more than it's going to be. I wouldn't mind getting to more of Mason Taylor, Evan Ingram. Pat Bryant looks good. Could stand to get to more Josh Reynolds, but I guess I'm well over the field already. Wouldn't mind getting to more Arian Smith here. I think I want more there. Tyler Johnson, I'm getting to more just because the ownership projection is so different on the two of them. I don't like getting to 0 Nick Folk. Like clearly, I think he's closer to Will Lutz than that. All right. So I kind of have an idea of what I need to change here. So I'm just going to make a few changes and then rerun it once. I'm going to click the Smart Adjust button, which is going to make things proportional. So if I change rushing market share, it'll also change rushing touchdown market share, et cetera, et cetera. So on the Broncos side of things, I think I need to bring down RJ Harvey's projected ownership to, we'll call it 30%. I think that seems like a reasonable projection. I'm going to move up Tyler Badie's receiving market share to 5%. What other changes? Man, how was I not getting too much Troy Franklin? Because that target share seems light to me. If we think he's kind of moving in the right direction, I guess I was getting to 24 and 3%. I might make the assumption that we're going to get fewer targets to Cortland Sutton and more to Troy Franklin as a result of the matchup here. So I'm going to move up Troy Franklin to 18% target share, move Cortland Sutton to 22%. Pat Bryant, I think, could continue to ascend as a rookie. I'm going to move him up just to a 7% target share. Who else? Marvin Mims, we're giving just a 2% of the rushing market share. That seems okay. Maybe I'm going to move off the Bo Nix rushing market share just a little bit, move him down to 12%. And then I can move up RJ Harvey to 26% and Marvin Mims to 5%. And now I'm going to click normalize. On the Jet side, I think I can move up the pass rate. Man, do I really want to, though? Oh, we only have Isaiah Davis with a 10% rushing market share, 0 to Khalil Herbert. So I think I can move down Breece Hall's rushing market share. He's already at 60%, though. Yeah, but with Justin Fields there. So he's getting, they have him at 6/7 of the rushing share outside of Justin Fields, which I think is more than it's going to be. So I am going to move him down to 50% and then move Isaiah Davis to 15% and Khalil Herbert to 5%. And we'll see what that does. Oh, and I did that in the wrong place for Khalil Herbert. Shoot. All right, we'll do that. All right, Arian Smith. I'm going to move. So Garrett Wilson getting the Patrick Surtain shadow coverage potentially. Going to move his market share down to 26%, closer to where it was in the last game. Going to get rid of Isaiah Williams. Going to move up Josh Reynolds to 12% target share. Arian Smith to 8% target share. Man, maybe get rid of Andrew Beck and just give that to Jeremy Ruckert. I'm going to do that. So I want to see if I can get a little bit of Jeremy Ruckert. All right, I gave too much. Let's see. Move this down to 3 and then normalize it. Let's see what that does. Okay, we're good. Maybe I give Nick Folk a projection of 7, see if that does something. And then what was I getting to of the defenses? Basically none of the Jets at 3,000. I think I want more of that. So I'm going to just give them a higher sack rate, move that up to 6%. And then I will run the sims again. And then from here, I should just be able to filter. All right, I'm scrolling back up. I see I got a super chat. Appreciate you. Let me get there. Do not drop Sam Laporta. You get one injury to any other receiver, and he's going to be gold, I think.
I think this is probably correct. Ricky says, I assume Shady Tool grabs the top EV lineup, then diversifies from there. But I think maybe I can't remember if I've seen it where the top lineup is not the top EV. The Shady Tool does not do dupe calculations for you. Those come from the Run the Sims simulator. All right, Debo may be out. Go with Adams, Waddle, Worthy, Judkins. Do you mean like which one of those would I go with? It would be Devontae Adams number one. Probably. I think Worthy would be the last of that group. Although that's a fun game environment, man. This is a tough question because these are some strong options. But I do think Devontae Adams would be my number one from this group. I think pretty clearly. And then after Adams, it would probably be Judkins, then Waddle, then Worthy. Um, but I don't feel strongly about it outside of I think Adams to me is the clear number one. Sean, it is 10 p.m. here. Brees does have receiving upside. I mean, he's targeted 4 times per game, and this is a great matchup for receiving running backs. I'm getting to a ton of him. How much Tez are you getting to? You mean on the main slate? I'm getting to a bit. What's up, Joanne? Yes, please do hit the like button. I'm going to get probably 5 to 10% of maybe 10% Tez Johnson, 10% Tolbert, something like that. And I hope RJ busts a long one. I could use it. Yeah, I'll probably get to some double Broncos running backs. Ingram does not project extremely well, but I think he could surprise. I'm just trying to scroll through chat. All right. Would you captain Broncos defense? I've seen Jets play. They aren't very good. I don't hate that idea. Honestly, the Broncos have a really strong defense. I think that's honestly a pretty good idea. It's going to go really underowned. We just saw, I mean, Justin Fields struggled against the worst defense in the NFL, maybe in the Cowboys. He can certainly struggle against this Broncos defense. So I like that idea of playing some Broncos D for sure. How much Darren Waller this week? Fresh ass. Man, I think he's a good play. I do think he's a pretty good, like maybe 10%. Probably not more than that because we have a lot of strong tight end options, but maybe 10%. All right, diversifying payouts. All right, so here I'm going to look at it. Then I'm just going to try to use the filters to get closer to where I want to be. Still at the top, a lot of the top lineups are Bo Nix, captain. First lineup now is Bo Nix with Cortland Sutton, Pat Bryant, RJ Harvey, Troy Franklin. Second lineup, Breece Hall, Isaiah Davis. So you see double Jets running back right away. J.K. Dobbins, Justin Fields, RJ Harvey. Well, that's actually double of both the running backs in this one. J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey, Breece Hall and Isaiah Davis, Justin Fields, Will Lutz. That's kind of interesting. These ones now leaving a lot of salary on the table after some of the adjustments that I made here. Yeah, Rick, you're looking at this one now. The top EV lineup is no longer the top here, so it's not anchoring to just the top EV as a start. So, which kind of surprised me. It's kind of black box. I don't really understand how this tool works, but that did surprise me that it doesn't anchor to the top EV lineup and then work down from there. All right, let's take a look at the player exposures now. Starting at quarterback. getting to 64% Fields and 13% at captain. That looks good to me. 48% and 22% Bo Nix. No issue with either of those. I'd be happy with those as being my exposures. Running backs were down to 56% Breece Hall, 9% at captain. So still getting to a ton of Fields, just not quite as much as I was before. I'm happy with that adjustment. I thought I might cut back on Breece quite a bit, but really we don't have many like awesome pay up options. So if I end up with 65%, I probably am not going to be complaining about it. 37 and 15% Dobbins looks good. 28 and 5% Harvey looks good. 21% Isaiah Davis. I wouldn't mind getting to a little bit more of Tyler Badie and Khalil Herbert. Again, Khalil Herbert, like in all likelihood, is a 0 in this game, but the coach speak did kind of suggest to me that maybe they want to get to a bit more of Khalil Herbert. Hang on. These are. Now I'm trying to figure out if what I'm getting is in my lineups now would be filtered or shady exposures. I think shady is still what I'm looking at here because these are different than they were before. So I believe in my top 191 lineups, it would be these shady exposures. I might need to verify that, but I believe that's still the case. But I might want a little bit more Badie and Herbert. At wide receiver, 35% Courtland Sutton, 10% at captain, 21% Garrett Wilson, 3% at captain, 17% Marvin Mims, 1% at captain, 29% Troy Franklin, 10% at captain. So getting more Franklin, that looks good. 20 and 3% Josh Reynolds seems pretty good. Double the field. 27% Pat Bryant, like that. Wouldn't mind getting to more Arian Smith than 4%. Maybe it is the filtered because now I'm getting to 10% Aaron Smith in the filtered lineups now to 8% Tyler Johnson. I'll have to double check what my actual exposures are right now. At tight end, man, 13% and 2% Mason Taylor would like to get a little bit more there. 9% Troutman, 8% Adkins, 0.5% Evan Ingram. I'm gonna download 191 lineups and take a look at how much I'm actually getting. Because I might be looking in the wrong column right now. Nope, I'm only getting to 0.5%. Wait, am I looking in the whole document or just that column? Hang on. Yeah, I am. It appears that I am correct, that it is the shady exposure column is what I have currently. So I'm still not getting to any Evan Ingram. Maybe I actually didn't do anything to get more of Evan Ingram. So that makes sense. Also not getting to Jeremy Ruckert. So I might need to make some changes to get to more of Ingram and Ruckert. Defense, we're at 15% Broncos, 6% at captain, 4% Jets, 1% at captain. Kicker, we are at 29% lots, up to 3% Folk. So did make some adjustments there. Man, do I want to do another run here? I was planning on that being my final run. Maybe I'll do one more run of the Sims here just to see what I get because I'm happy with my quarterbacks. Generally happy with my running back exposures. Maybe want a little bit more Badie or Herbert. Wide receivers getting close to where I'd like to be. Badie, Herbert, Arian Smith, I want a little bit more. Maybe Mims. Mason Taylor a bit more. Evan Ingram a bit more. Nick Folk. And probably a bit more of the Broncos defense also. All right, so let's see. I'm just going to do that real quick. So Badie, I'm going to move up to 4% receiving market share. Just going to get rid of Adam Prentice. Maybe a bit more Mims. I'll move him up to 12%. Brian up to 7%. Just going to click normalize, see what happens. Yeah, it didn't actually move Brian at all there, but okay, I think that's fine. Broncos defense, going to move the sack rate from 9.2% to 10%. Oh, I want a little bit more Evan Ingram. What if he gets a little bit of the rushing market share? I'm going to move Bo Nix down to 10% rushing market share and give that to Evan Ingram. Did that work? Click normalize. What do I do here? All right, somebody's too high here. I'm going to move Troutman down to 5. Adkins down to 3. There we go. On the Jet side, did I want to get more Isaiah Davis? I want to check that. No, I'm happy with my Isaiah Davis. Khalil Herbert, a little bit more. Going to move Herbert up to 7% rushing market share and reduce Fields to, there's somebody else I could give this to. Maybe I'll actually, no, I'm good with my Breece Hall. I'm going to reduce Fields to, no, I'm not. I'm going to move Breece Hall down slightly. Okay. Actually, might move down Breece Hall. Receiving market share, 12.9% is fine, though, I guess. Maybe give Khalil Herbert 1%. But is there anybody I want to take away from here? I guess Brandon Smith. I want to give that to Josh Reynolds, though, I think. Or Arian Smith. I think I'm okay with just bringing Josh Reynolds up to 13%. Clicking normalize. Then I'm going to bring Nick Folk up to 8% projection. Or sorry, 8 projection. All right, we'll try that. And this is going to be my final run of the Sims. And then I'll adjust things after the fact with the filters. I don't think leaving 6,200 on the table in a large field contest is necessarily bad. If you really like your lineup, it's probably not going to be duped at all. So it would have to be a really large field. Did I move Mims up? I think I moved Mims up slightly. Ricky says the Sims are great, but sometimes hard to input your IKB takes into them. I think the problem, so I think it's actually fairly easy to, if you have time to run multiple Sims, to like say like, I think this guy is going to get more volume for this reason. Like it's pretty easy to increase things that way. The trap that I fall into that I don't think is necessarily good practice is I try to bully the Sims too much in cases where it's like, I'm going to reduce Justin Fields' rushing market share, not because I think he's actually going to run less than they have him at, but because I want to get to less of Justin Fields. I want to get to more of other players. So like I sometimes fall into the trap of trying to use the Sims like an optimizer and not necessarily taking full advantage of what the Sims are providing. It's tough when you're not like Yeah, I probably am trying to IKB it too much. So I don't actually think it's that difficult, because you can change the market shares to exactly what you want them to be. You can change the teams, all of that. So like I can get to the lineups that I want, but probably it's not the best practice to be doing that as much as I am to like bully them to get to the players that I want, rather than being like, all right, this is what the Sims are telling me is best. I should just accept what they're telling me. But I'm sure you have more experience than I do with Sims products, I would think. Yeah, and you can also adjust the ownership. This is also true. Chokehold'em says if ownership is off, Sims could be spitting out bad lineups. It's really important to have good ownership here, which is why if you think ownership just looks really off, you can adjust that also. Play Nix, Fields, Mims, Harvey. I mean, no issue with that start. I've been increasing my Broncos defense. I would like to get to north of 20%, I think. I also think Mason Taylor looks good. I don't think I changed anything on Mason Taylor, did I? Favorite game to target for the main slate, probably Dallas, Carolina, which seems common, I think. That like the full game just looks better there. Yeah, definitely look out for my stream at 7 a.m. tomorrow. You guys know how much of a morning bird I am. Early bird? Early bird. Yeah, that's what you say. I mean, I will actually be up way earlier than I want to be to stream with Roto Grinders for the main slate tomorrow at 10 a.m. my time. Jack says Chalk is going to be so mad, so mad when they realize 9K road puka is swimming through a nor'easter. Yeah, we definitely have to watch. The weather could impact tomorrow quite a bit. No, I don't think Ruckert and Taylor in the same lineup is getting too weird. One of my second biggest win of all time was a showdown lineup that had Gerald Everett and Donald Parham, both with the Chargers at the time. And I think it's the same kind of build as here, where it's like neither of them is like the stud full time. They both could see. I mean, I guess Mason Taylor pretty close to the stud full time, but Jeremy Ruckert will be involved enough that yeah, I think that is totally viable. Top lineup in the third run of Sims, we've got Bo Nix with Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, Justin Fields naked, leaves 2,400 on the table. Second lineup is J.K. Dobbins, captain, with Denver Broncos defense, Will Lutz. This makes a lot of sense to me. Justin Fields, Josh Reynolds, and Breece Hall. Third lineup, Bo Nix with Cortland Sutton, Pat Bryant, RJ Harvey, Troy Franklin, Breece Hall, bring back. These lineups are looking solid in my opinion. Looking at my exposure, so again, looking at the shady columns on the far right. At quarterback, we're at 67% and 14% Justin Fields, 40% and 19% Bo Nix. So we're getting a little bit light on the Knicks, but still enough that I don't need to go back and change this if this is what I'm getting. Running backs, we're getting to 52 and 9% Breece Hall, 37 and 23% J.K. Dobbins, 26 and 1% RJ Harvey, 14% Isaiah Davis, still just 0.5% of Tyler Badie, still none of Khalil Herbert. So this is where like my inclination is like I got to keep changing things until I get to what I want in my lineups instead of just accepting like, okay, I'm like giving them pretty big projections and still not getting there. I mean, I'm not getting big projections. So I could go back and change things more. At this point, I'm probably just going to accept what I'm getting. Wide receiver, 30 and 8% Cortland Sutton, 20 and 3% Garrett Wilson, 26% Marvin Mims, 26 and 9% Troy Franklin, 33 and 5% Josh Reynolds, 23 and 0.5% Pat Bryant, 4% Aaron Smith, 5% Tyler Johnson. Tight end, we're just up to just 11% Mason Taylor. I think I might have forgotten to change things there. I think I did. So I need to go back and change that maybe. Not going to do that on stream. Still just 1% Evan Ingram. I think I'd like him a little bit more than that. Like I'd like to force my way to a little bit of Evan Ingram, 5% Troutman, 2% Adkins. Defenses, we're getting to 27 and 7% Broncos, 6% and 2% Jets. Kickers, 30% Will Lutz, 15% Nick Folk. So overall, let's take a look at my. Is there anybody that I'm getting to way too much of that I want to cut back on? I might cut back a little bit of Breece Hall in the flex to spread that around elsewhere. Could cut back on Will Lutz a little bit, but I don't know. I guess maybe cutting back on Will Lutz will give me more Mason Taylor. So generally pretty happy with my lineups. I think I'm going to cut back slightly on Breece Hall and slightly on Will Lutz. So to do that, I'm going to go to my graded lineups, advanced filters, maximum at captain for Breece Hall. Oh, sorry. I'm happy with the captain exposure. Let me redo that. Maximum at flex of Breece Hall of 35%. Maximum at flex of Will Lutz. My hope is that now I'm going to get to more Mason Taylor if I bring Will Lutz down to 20%. Let's see. Want to see if there's any other. Oh, predicted dupes. I could bring that number down. I think I'm already getting to pretty low there, though. I don't really want to set a ton of rules here. So I'm just going to do those minor tweaks. I'm going to send back, I'll send back all these lineups. And I'm going to click re-optimize portfolio. So now it's going to run through the shady portfolio optimizer again, hopefully get a little bit closer to where I want to be. Appreciate that, Mike. Yeah, it's been a week now. Tomorrow it'll be a week. It's been a tough one, but we're getting through. Someone was out that I didn't wake up to change. Yeah, that first Sunday morning game. Who was it that was out? Oh, it was Jalen Warren was surprisingly inactive. Choke says, what do you think of my take of the Cowboys selling out to stop Dowdle? That is true that Jerry probably would prefer to stop Rico Dowdle. He is involved so much in the passing game that like it's hard to see him not scoring 10 fantasy points here. I don't hate it. Like if you want to be under the field on Dowdle, totally reasonable. I mean, if you want to full fade him, do your thing. I'm not gonna tell you on that one to full fading Dowdle, particularly also because I don't love a ton of running backs on this slate. But I don't think it's a bad take that like they could sell out to stop him. So then if that makes you like the pass catchers more, I can totally see that being something you want to lean into. All right, let's see here. Oh, not full fading. Okay. Good. All right, looks like we got through. All right, let's see. Player exposures now, am I at? Okay, so now I'm looking at the filtered. I see. Oh, that makes sense. Filtered because I hadn't filtered before. So now I've filtered it. So now I'm down to below 40% Breece Hall filtered. And 21% Will Lutz. So I filtered it to 20, but it kind of rounds there. All right, so that looks better now. So that would be my shady advice exposures filtered now. So now I'm up. Now I'm at 50 and 18% Justin Fields, 47 and 13% Bo Nix, 37 and 13% Breece Hall, 32 and 12% J.K. Dobbins, 31 and 10% Cortland Sutton. I think I got to more of Sutton and Wilson because I got off some of that Breece Hall exposure. So I'm up to 28.8% Garrett Wilson, 23.5% Mims, 25.4% Franklin, 24.3 Harvey, 21.2 Lutz. Getting to a lot of the Broncos, 24.5. Okay, we are up to 21% Mason Taylor. So that did work to get me to more Taylor by cutting off some of that Lutz exposure, 21.3%. That looks a lot better to me, Mason Taylor. 21.1 of Folk, 18.2 of Josh Reynolds. Wouldn't have minded more there. 16.1 of the Jets, 16.1 of Isaiah Davis, 14.1 Ingram, only 10% Pat Bryant. Wouldn't have minded more there. 10% Aaron Smith, 6% Tyler. All right, this is looking more in line with where I'd like to be at this point. So now I'm going to download these lineups. And how many was it? 191 lineups. So let's download these. Let me just look at this. All right. And I'll enter these. But that is going to do it for this video. Oh man, Roth has 20-mile-per-hour sustain and 35 gusts. I don't love that. That does hurt quite a bit for the Cowboys. Panthers, I will be paying attention to that. Is Dobbs a thing? Dobbs is still a thing, yeah. He only scored 3 touchdowns the other week. He can still go off. I do think Golden could be due for that post-bye rookie bump. That's what I'm hoping for this week, but I think Dobbs is more likely to hit than Golden still. All right, I am going to get out of here. Appreciate all of you watching the show. Please do, before you get out of here, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are not already subscribed. I will be back in the morning on the Rotogrinders channel, and then for Sunday Night Football, of course, I'll be back before lock once again, breaking down Sunday Night Football tomorrow. Monday, we've got a 2-gamer. I'll be back with Adam in the morning, and then I'll be streaming again my own before lock as well. So catch me on all of that. Appreciate you guys as usual, and I will catch you tomorrow. Good luck.